right now may be the worst time to buy a GPU ever. Let's talk about it.
Before that, make sure to subscribe and click the bell icon so you never miss another video.
So GPU prices have been dropping for a while, and right now they're probably the cheapest they've been for over a year, but honestly I still have absolutely zero interest in buying a graphics card right now, and even if they doubled in price tomorrow, I still wouldn't feel bad about not buying one today, and here's why. Alright, so the first reason as to why I believe right now may be the worst time in history to try and buy a graphics card is because, well, a card like the RTX 3080 at this point launched nearly a year and a half ago, all the way back in September of 2020. So after a whole entire year and a half of waiting to pay way over the MSRP for this graphics card at this point is just utterly ridiculous in my opinion, and it gets even worse when you take a look at the mid-range and entry-level cards such as the RX 6500 XT, which is way overpriced at its like $280, and that's basically the best deal you're gonna get on an entry-level graphics card other than going for an RX 580 used, which is an even better deal, but even that's still kind of a bad deal. But even worse, if you take a look at the RTX 3050, even though its MSRP was barely palatable at $250, realistically you're only going to be getting this card between $330 and $600 US, which is just unbelievably absurd, and I definitely would not recommend anyone pick up either of these cards. So if you're looking into getting into PC gaming, yeah, right now is just a really bad time if you're looking at the entry-level market. And speaking of it being a bad time, well, in not too long we're going to be taking a look at the RTX 40 series, and this brings me to my second point. Yeah, the RTX 40 series is not too far away. It's at the end of this year, so in that case, yes, if you could get a graphics card for its MSRP, hey, that wouldn't be too bad of a deal right now, and I would go ahead and tell you to take that plunge and buy that graphics card, especially if you look at something like the RTX 3080, where I felt like the MSRP of $700 was always a great deal. But if you can't get it for its MSRP, with it being a year and a half after launch and the RTX 40 series coming up pretty soon, because although yes, the end of the year is a little ways away, it's not going to be too long before we're talking about the RTX 40 series, and not only is it coming up in not too long, but the RTX 40 series is going to make a lot of the 30 series, almost redundant or irrelevant, as we're talking about what could be a nearly doubling in performance, or some people are claiming it's going to be even more than a doubling in performance, at least when you take a look at the top-end RTX 4090 versus the RTX 3090. So as you can imagine, that is going to trickle down the stack, and something like the RTX 4060 could very well be faster than something like the RTX 3090, although we'll just have to wait and see how things pan out when they actually launch. That's just, again, another reason as to why buying something right now for way over its MSRP could end up being a bad idea, especially considering that I am actually expecting GPU pricing and availability to continue to improve throughout 2022. But now let's go ahead and talk about the third reason as to why I believe buying a graphics card right now might be a really bad idea, and we have to talk about the consoles here, guys. Now this one might be more applicable to people who are just getting into PC gaming who are watching this video, and not so much people who already have a PC and are looking just to upgrade. But either way, we have to talk about the consoles, because right now you can get the Xbox Series X pretty regularly on places like eBay for $550. That's only $50 over its original MSRP, and honestly it's much easier to get these consoles at their MSRP than it is to get graphics cards. Again, that's over the MSRP, but it's a much better deal, because in the case of the Xbox Series X, if you get that for $550, if you're looking at getting into PC gaming, honestly this might be a better option for you to go for the Xbox Series X plus maybe a laptop to do your work on, at least for now, because honestly you're getting basically 2080 super levels of performance on the graphics card, you're getting a Zen 2 8-core 16-thread CPU, basically 12 gigabytes of VRAM and an additional 4 gigabytes of RAM for background tasks, and you're getting a 1 terabyte SSD. Meanwhile, over on the PC, just buying an RTX 2080 Super could cost you upwards of $700+, which is just absolutely absurd. So if you're just looking into getting into PC gaming right now, it might be a good idea to wait, because I just simply cannot recommend that you buy one graphics card that is equal to a console that is way less expensive and gives you an entire system. So for those of you who are just getting into it, that's kind of my recommendation there. Now, again, for those of you who have a PC right now, you might not be interested in consoles whatsoever, and hey, I totally understand that. But now let's go ahead and talk about the fourth reason as to why I believe just buying graphics cards right now isn't a great idea, and I honestly do recommend waiting, even though they have been dropping in price. And that is, it's honestly damaging the PC market significantly when we go ahead ahead and try and buy graphics cards way over their MSRP. All it's doing is telling Nvidia and AMD that it's okay for them to charge basically whatever they want to, and it's just going to continue to raise prices higher and higher, as we've been seeing in the last couple of generations. And we're just going to continue going where we are now, where we've reached a point where just buying a console gives you way better value than buying a graphics card. Whereas in the past, you could build an entire PC, in between building it yourself as well as saving on not having to pay for internet costs and getting cheaper games, it was actually cheaper in the long run to go with PC. And there's just so many great things about PC, and that's why it's my favorite platform, that it was always going to make more sense to build a PC. And if we continue down this road, it's going to make less and less sense for people to join into the PC market, which is only going to hurt things like getting worse PC ports and stuff like that. So I think it's really important that we do have to keep in mind the health of the PC industry when we go to buy graphics cards. You know, it might make sense to buy an RTX 3080 and mine on it or something to try and make up the difference, but realistically, you are doing a lot of harm to the PC industry when you go ahead and buy that graphics card for way more than it realistically should be going for. I mean, I could imagine somebody wanting to buy an RTX 3080 for like $850, maybe even $900, but when we're talking about $1,300 plus for an RTX 3080, that is really damaging to the PC industry. So yeah, there you go. Honestly, right now, I feel like because of those four things I mentioned, buying a graphics card right now is a really bad idea for the PC industry as a whole, and for you personally, as I think throughout 2022, things can only get better. And even if they didn't get better, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I still wouldn't recommend you buy a graphics card, and personally, I'm not going to either. I mean, personally for me, I'm actually out of graphics card right now because one of them went ahead and basically blew up on me, and it was the one I was going to be using in my fiance's PC, so I've been just waiting for that graphics card. And by the way, Gigabyte's been taking like 2 months to get it done, and they still haven't been able to give me a replacement because they have the worst customer service in the entire industry, I swear. But that's besides the point. So I've been looking at potentially picking up an AMD graphics card because I want to go ahead and see how, you know, how much progress they've been able to make on their driver side. Can you use it realistically for stuff like Adobe Premiere Pro? Does it have GPU acceleration? But I'm not going to do it because frankly right now everything's just so overpriced that I just cannot stomach buying one of these graphics cards for personal use. It just doesn't make any sense, and it's going to do so much harm to the industry that I'm just simply not going to do it. But hey, that's just what I think. Do you think that buying a graphics card right now is a good idea, or you think you should wait? Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments below, and of course, I'll see you in the next video.
If you made it to the end of the video, be sure to drop a like. Every time you do so, AMD and Nvidia get more stock. Also, if you want to see more, click here. You won't be disappointed.